Hello, everybody. Dajahao, Daikaho. Welcome to Markham, variously described as Canada's most diverse city by Statistics Canada, or at least by the mayor, the Chinese capital of the GTA. And you may have seen an article in the New York Times a couple of days ago talking about all the wonderful Chinese restaurants in Markham. So I, of course, am honored that our Prime Minister is here in Markham with us today.
Great to be back.
As well as my three parliamentary colleagues, and I turn it over now to Sean Chen.
Thank you, Minister. 大家好，大家好，我係陳勝元，我是陳勝元, and it's such a pleasure to be here in Markham to join you. I am Sean Chen, the Member of Parliament for Scarborough North, and I had the great privilege and honor of joining our Prime Minister on his first official visit to China. And let me tell you, it was incredible to hear on the ground the folks that want us to continue to strengthen the relationship. So I look forward to today, and thank you all for being here.
Good afternoon. 大家好. I'm Genta. I'm a Member of Parliament from Don Valley North. I guess the people here, most of you are my friends. I had the honor to join the Prime Minister's trip to China as well with the delegation. And I learned a lot and lots of things that I really want to share with you. But of course, the Prime Minister will tell you everything. I have to leave in 1 or 2 minutes because I have to catch a flight to China as the co-chair of Canada-China Legislative Association. So I'm going to be there in China to promote our tourism. Remember, 2018 is our year of tourism and education and commercial cooperation with China. So 非常高兴在这里，我加入了这个总理的中国之行，有很多这个信息或者好的消息，也愿意借这个机会分享给大家。但是今天没有机会，下次如果大家有什么手机有时间的时候，到我办公室来，我愿意跟大家分享。谢谢 ，Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, gang, and safe travels. My name is Arnold Chan. I am the Member of Parliament for Scarborough Agincourt, and I have the pleasure of welcoming somebody who really needs no introduction. Given how many of you are here, I think I simply want to challenge some of your priorities, given that we are near the home of the Blue Jays, and I think they're up 5-1. So for those of you who are still wondering what the score is, that's where we're at. I really am very much looking forward to hearing the Prime Minister's comments, and I simply want to give folks a sense that after the Prime Minister has made his opening remarks, I will be moderating today's question and answer from the media. I do want to state that I will be taking questions only from the Chinese media. This is an opportunity for us to have outreach, particularly for those who don't always have an opportunity to see the Prime Minister. And so I will be taking your questions after the Prime Minister has spoken. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Arnold. What a pleasure to see you all here today. It's great to see so many familiar faces from the many opportunities I've had to sit down with the Chinese Canadian community over the past years. As you all know, one of the most important jobs that I consider the Prime Minister has is to build opportunity for Canadians, make sure that the middle class and those working hard to join it, hardworking families, have opportunities to create success and prosperity for themselves, for their kids, for their communities. And that's why it was so important to me to set the relationship with China on a positive keel. You may realize, and you may think back to the previous government, where when you looked at the list of our 5 most important trading partners as a country, we had a relationship with the United States that was broken because there was only one topic of conversation that the previous government wanted to talk about, and a lot of other files slipped to the wayside. A non-existent relationship with Japan, a very difficult relationship because of visa issues with Mexico, a completely stalled trade deal with the European Union, and with China China, the challenge was that the relationship was very inconstant. There'd be hot and then cold in different moments, and as we know, when we engage with a country with as deep a history and as significant challenges in terms of size and scale as China has, what is important is to be regular and constant in our relationship. And that's exactly what was so important to me about these past 2 months, where we had an opportunity, first of all, to lead a great delegation to China to create a reset for the relationship. We had a very, very warm welcome from both the President and the Premier, and we got to talk about a broad range of issues. And obviously, the economics and the potential for trade was very much there as we watched China change from being simply an export-based economy to recognizing the incredible opportunity that 300 million members of the Chinese middle class have to be consumers and purchasers of good quality goods from Canada, whether it be agricultural or manufacturing. There is a tremendous opportunity for small and medium-sized businesses in Canada to actually sell into the Chinese market, which certainly was highlighted by the opening of a Canada Pavilion at Alibaba, which was something that I worked on directly with Jack Ma. But the other thing that having a strong relationship allows for is, while we are talking about the economic opportunities and challenges that our country faces, and it was great to be able to settle the canola issue because our Western farmers are very, very pleased that they now have predictable access to the Chinese market. At the same time, there are a lot of other issues to talk about, whether it was difficult consular cases, whether it's human rights, whether it's rule of law, and our expectations around how friends and partners behave, that we established a situation that will now allow us to have regular, robust conversations on these issues while at the same time advancing our priorities. And that having a relationship that's strong enough that allows us to talk frankly and directly about difficult issues and work through them is exactly what I know the Chinese Canadian community expects, but indeed Canadians expect in how we engage with the world. To be able to follow up my visit to China with the opportunity to welcome Premier Li here to Canada was a nice chance to show off just how extraordinary the Chinese Canadian community is in this country to Premier Li, to be able to show how proud we are of the great Chinese Canadian community and how we believe that the Chinese Canadian community is essential in creating greater links between Canada and China, not just on the economic file, but as Gang mentioned, the 2018 will be the year of Canada-China tourism. We plan on doubling Canada-China trade by 2025. There are many ambitious goals that we have that we are all going to be able to work on together. So this was an opportunity for me to also recognize that Canada has a chance to lead once again. The pride that I feel that my father was instrumental in shaping the way that the Western world engaged with China as of the early 70s, really demonstrated how the world can work with China and create opportunities on both sides at a time where China was just entering and engaging in the international community. Now we have a point where China is in rapid transformation away from being solely based around manufacturing and exporting into now being strong consumers as well. And I think there is an opportunity for Canadians to once again show the leadership that shapes the way the West can engage with China, where we are both firm on issues of concern around our values, around our rights, but also creating opportunities for China and the Chinese citizens to prosper prosper and become more successfully integrated into a global economy. These are things that are very exciting and things that I certainly look forward to working on in the coming years, and things that I know that the Chinese Canadian community will be important friends and allies as we continue to create prosperity for our citizens in the middle class and those working hard to join it.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. In terms of taking questions, Amory, who's on my right, Amory, just give us a quick wave, has a microphone. So if you wish to ask a question, I will acknowledge you, and Amory will come by and give you the microphone. We'll start right in front of you.
Hi, Prime Minister. I'm from Singtao Daily. So my name is Perta. So I want to know. I want to ask questions regarding to the extradition treaty with China. So so how possible actually it will come true, and is it a new feature? Even though that both countries have different definitions on judicial process, China has death penalty and we don't, and also about the different value of human rights.
Canada and China have talked about China's desire to look at extradition for a long time now. It's happened over many, many years. But the fact is, those conversations around that, around consular, around rule of law, around human rights, has always been very ad hoc. It's not been formalized around any rigid process. So what we actually were able to agree with the Chinese leadership was to have a high-level dialogue on issues of security, on human rights, on rule of law that are of interest to either side. So it's a forum in which, for example, we talked a lot about our concerns with Kevin Garrett, and we were able to make positive steps forward in terms of eventually bringing him home. Similarly, we know that the Chinese leadership is interested in talking to us about extradition, and we're always open to talking about it, because the fact is it gives us an opportunity to highlight the extremely high standards that Canada has around extradition treaties, around our expectations on what a justice system should be able to do, the level of transparency, the level of rigor, and it also talks about, as you pointed out, our very strong and unequivocal position on capital punishment. For example, and this is not just towards China, with the United States, we will not engage in extradition for anyone who is facing the death penalty in the United States. We don't believe in the death penalty in Canada, and that applies for us right around the world. And that's actually something that, interestingly enough, we had to change when we came into office, because the Conservative government actually loosened the federal government's stance on the death penalty and no longer made it mandatory for the government to fight for anyone facing the death penalty anywhere around the world. Well, I'm a liberal. I'm a strong believer that the death penalty is something that we need to do away with in the world, whether it's in the United States or China or anywhere else. And that's why we are very, very pleased that we have now a formalized forum in which we can have these conversations and share, as you point out, our very, very high expectations around rule of law and human rights and the justice system before there are any extradition treaties signed anywhere in the world.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Prime Minister, so how do you describe the relation between Canada and China in terms of, are we just business partner, or we have allies with sharing common value on human rights or environmental protection? How would you describe our relationship? Is it just a business partner?
No, I think the strength of the Chinese Canadian community, and indeed of the people and education ties between Canada and China, really highlight that it's far more than a business relationship. But at the same time, we have to recognize that China and Canada have two very, very different paths towards governance of where they are now, and very different challenges that our countries are facing. And it gives an opportunity to share solutions and challenges, to engage with each other and be constructive and helpful as we hopefully learn from each other in various ways. But there's always, in the ideal, a relationship that happens on multiple layers. And when we talk about 2018 as being the year for Canada-China tourism, it's certainly, yes, we look forward to welcoming many Chinese tourists to Canada, but I also know there will be many, many Canadians excited about going to discover, visit, how beautiful China is. I know I've had many trips as a young man to China with my father and on my own, and there's great opportunities for tourism for Canadians, and deepening those people-to-people ties is really important. So the relationship with China needs to be seen as strong, stable, deep, and robust enough to be able to have a broad range of conversations on many, many different topics, not just economics, although economics will always be a part of it.
Go ahead.
I'm Yafeng Xu from Loving Sister. I have a couple of questions. First one, so your government has started the re-engagement with China. So how can you ensure your government's firm standing on human rights? For example, MPs from different parties have urged that Canadian government shouldn't vote no at the UN's Human Rights Council to the countries who have human rights issues. So we'd like to know what's the plan of your government when you cast the vote at UN. Second question is, you always define yourself as a feminist. So I would like to know what kind of concrete actions you would like to put forward to advance the gender equality in China, to lend a hand to the feminist activists in China. Third question or a comment. Last one. Because I just learned that today's question, I just conserved for the Chinese language media. I think for journalists from Chinese media appreciate that opportunities. At the same time, I think maybe it's better to have a more open process or session to have questions from different perspectives, including perspectives from English media.
Thank you. I'm happy to take that third question first, actually. A few hours ago, I had a press conference with mainstream media on a great investment by Thomson Reuters in Canada. They're moving their head office from Connecticut up to here in Toronto because they see the opportunities for creating good jobs and global investment here, and it's something that we've been working on. I'm happy to take questions on that if any of the Chinese media have questions about that. Obviously, one of the most important things for me is to highlight that outreaches to community media and community specific groups like this should never exclude mainstream media, and I'm glad to see people from main outlets as well here. But at the same time, this is an opportunity to specifically talk about issues that in a national press conference don't necessarily get the kind of attention that I know your readership and your community sometimes wants. So getting that balance right is extremely important to me. There's no question about that. On your first question, okay, now I'm remembering the first question was human rights. Quite frankly, we have always been very, very firm about human rights. Every time I have met with Chinese leadership, I've brought up Kevin Garrett case, for example. It started when I was first met with Xi Jinping in the G20 in Ankara, or no, it was in the Philippines that I actually I got to sit down with him at the APEC meeting. That for me is part of how we engage, always bringing up the challenging issues, but doing it in a way that is focused on constructive engagement that gets results. And I'm pleased that we were able to get to the point where Kevin Garrett and his family are now home in Canada, and that's something that regular, strong, clear, but respectful engagement delivers more results in than a government that chooses to that might choose to spend all its time shouting at the leadership in the media, but not actually talking in a constructive way about the goals and the outcomes we want. What was the second question? Feminism. The feminism, yes. Obviously, I believe I heard a number of times about a Chinese proverb that points out that women hold up half the sky. And I think there's always, in every country, an awful lot of work to do on improving gender equity and gender balance and reducing gender-based violence and making sure that we give full opportunity to women to be successful and as successful in whichever ways they choose. Concretely, I was very pleased that when I sat down with Jack Ma, the head of Alibaba, we had a great conversation about women, not just women as consumers of Alibaba services, but also as the small business owners that used Alibaba to reach their customers. And I actually encouraged Jack, and he was very enthusiastic about it, but the idea that he would become more of a champion for feminism, that he would demonstrate in the business community how bringing more women on in positions of leadership within business is good for not just moral reasons, but it's good for a company's bottom line, and it's good for the kinds of decisions that get made.
Great. And just to follow up on the Prime Minister's first question, in which he answered, Minister McCallum, myself, and Sean will be available afterwards. Of course, the Prime Minister's time is always precious, but this is an opportunity for those of you who don't always get an opportunity to ask the Prime Minister a question to do so. I did see Grant. You had your hand up earlier.
Hi, Prime Minister. I'm Grant Guo from CCTV. I have a question. So you mentioned the trade between Canada and China. So my question is, Canada and China are exploring the possibility to form a free trade deal, and I want to know how long the exploring will take, and what kind of barriers are there to stop the two sides from forming free trade deal. That's my question. Thank you.
Well, I think anytime you look at countries that are as different in size of population and of economy as Canada, but also at different points in their development, in the internal balance of their economies, there's an awful lot of issues to work out. But my hope is that the work we have going already, trade, exploratory set-up discussions, will focus on things that aren't often part of traditional free trade agreements, issues of environment, issues of what to do around state-owned enterprises, issues around labor rights, and things that will really demonstrate the kind of positive outcomes that trade deals can have, not just for companies and countries, but for ordinary citizens. One of the things we're seeing around the world right now is a lot of people worried about trade, whether it's Brexit, whether it's the protectionism that's going through parts of Europe and indeed south of the border for us. There are concerns that the benefits of trade aren't always felt by the people who end up working hardest for it and sometimes risk losing jobs. So what we really have to make sure is that as we negotiate deals, they're going to genuinely be good for Canadian citizens and for Chinese citizens. And that conversation about what 21st century trade deals can and should look like is certainly something that Canada's happy to be leading on. We made some significant changes to our Europe trade deal to make it a more progressive, modern deal. But for China, engaging in a new type of trade deal that will cover more issues like this is going to, I think, set the bar for further engagement in the world and more trade deals around the world. So I think there's a really important imperative to get this one right, and there's going to be a lot of learning on both sides as we figure out how to work together for the benefit of our citizens between two very different but in many ways very complementary markets.
Okay. So before you go, we're going to one, then to Candy, then to you, sir, and then to Joseph at the back.
Okay, 4 more questions.
1 more, that would be it.
Good.
Great. Thank you, Prime Minister and Ministers. My name is Jamie, and I'm from CCMNWall-TV and Charming China. So my question is regarding immigration, because that's what we really want to know. I know in March that Minister McCallum has announced a new record number of newcomers that are coming into Canada in 2016. And right now, the Chinese immigrants that are coming into this country has decreased to 4th place. And we just want to know what's the estimate quota that you will open the doors to Chinese immigrants, and what kind of programs and categories you would be focused on. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to pass this over to the Immigration Minister to answer, but I will just say as a first point, it's extremely important to me to highlight that Canadians understand how important immigration is. Being open to the world, drawing in extraordinary people to build their lives, build their future, build their kids' future in this country is what has created the success of Canada over the past centuries and is certainly going to continue. So I'm very excited about immigration and about the continuing challenges we have and the opportunities we have to actually show the world that immigration is how you build economic growth and opportunity for everyone. So with that, I'm very, very pleased with the work that John McCallum has been doing, and happy to have you give more specific information about our approach.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister. And as an immigration minister, it's very nice to have those opening words from our Prime Minister on the positive nature of immigration. In terms of your question, China is, I think, one of the top 3. It's always Philippines, China, India on permanent residents. But China is far and away number 1 when it comes to temporary visas for students, for workers, and for tourists. So China is very much leading the way in that area. And of course, we want to have more Chinese visitors. We certainly want more Chinese tourists. That's why we have 7 new visa application centers spread across China, so it'll be easier for more Chinese to come here. And as the Prime Minister indicated, we have strong targets for increasing that tourism. We're not even in the top 10 right now for tourists from China, so I think we have a long way to go to get bigger. And China is a hugely growing middle class, so there's enormous potential for tourists. And the final thing I'll say is on students. I have frequently said, if you look at all the different kinds of people, I can't think of one group that is a better potential future Canadian than an international student. They're educated, they speak English or French, they're quite young, often they know the country, and so we will certainly make more room for international students by giving additional points for them under express entry. And so we certainly hope to see in coming years large increase in the numbers of tourists as well as students coming from China and coming from all other countries in the world.
Excellent.
Andy.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not going to stand up because I don't want to block the camera. 2017 is going to mark the 20th anniversary of Hong Kong's handover to China, and we're going to have a new chief executive in Hong Kong as well. I wonder, during your time, your visit to Hong Kong, do you have a chance to speak to local leaders and talk about their concerns? And what are your comments on the deteriorating situation in Hong Kong's human rights? Because you speak about rule of law and also our high standards.
Well, I think one of the things that's really important to us is because Canada has such such a deep and long-lasting friendship with Hong Kong specifically, is the one country, two systems approach. I think it's extremely important that we continue to defend that in Hong Kong. I think it makes a tremendous sense for the world to be able to have a way in towards China, and for China to have a way out to the world that is deeply anchored in both straddling those two realities at the same time. I was privileged to have had a number of great meetings with people in Hong Kong, including a group of young business leaders who were particular in that they were all proud citizens of Hong Kong, but also had family connections or personal connections to Canada, having studied here, having gone to university here, and really talking about how we can continue to bridge the family, the cultural, and the business connections between Canada and Hong Kong is something that is really, really interesting and important, I think, to all of us. We also had opportunities to exchange on the political challenges facing Hong Kong, and I look forward to continuing to be a voice that promotes rule of law, human rights, democracy, not just in Hong Kong and in China, but indeed around the world. I think that's been something that we've solidly made something that is part of the Canadian brand, regardless of which government is in power.
Prime Minister Patrick Long from China Canadian Voice. Just like you mentioned, in 1970s, your father, Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, opened the door and brought China to the international stage. But in that time, China is relatively poor and underdeveloped. Nowadays, China is the second largest economic body around the world. So what can Canada do in this case? We should help them, or we can learn from them. Thank you.
Well, I think I think we can both help and learn from, and I think the best relationships are ones in which both sides end up with win-wins. I think when it comes to recognizing the incredible achievement that China has had in lifting over 1 billion people out of poverty over the past few decades, adding more recently about 300 million people to the global middle class, this is a significant achievement that has happened very rapidly, that has transformed many people's lives, but doesn't come without very real challenges around governance, around justice system, around pressures and tensions within the country. And certainly Canada is a place that has very, very strong political, judicial, civil society institutions that we are happy to help share what works, what has worked for us, what might work in China, especially being able to draw on Chinese-Canadian community that understands what we're able to achieve here in Canada and what lessons there are for China. But at the same time, there are tremendous opportunities for economic connections. There's tremendous opportunities for us to draw on some of the market access, not just to China, but to the growing economies of Asia, where China has sort of a leading role. So there are many, many things that we can work together on that will be to the benefit of both of our citizens, both of our countries, and I look forward to that. I think the best relationships are ones in which we end up all of us improving and getting better because of those friendships and relationships, and that's certainly what the historical track that Canada and China have been on.
Okay, the last question has to go to Joseph because I have to be mindful of the Prime Minister's time. Okay. But again, as I mentioned earlier, Minister McCallum, Sean, and I will be available to continue to take any of your questions. So, Joseph, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Prime Minister, when auto industry faces challenges and difficulties, government spend millions of dollars to help save auto jobs. Now that the media industry in Canada face challenges and difficulties too, we see layoff, we see mergers, so that will your government be considering to set up a task force to help the media industry, especially the ethnic media? Thank you.
Well, I think one of the things that we need to recognize within the auto industry is that we're undergoing transformations. And that's why right here in Markham, just a few months ago, I announced that GM was investing and creating hundreds and hundreds of new jobs around here. But they weren't traditional assembly line auto jobs. They're research and engineering jobs here in Markham, so that GM can move forward on self-driving cars, on automation, on electric hybrid vehicles, and the kind of research that is defining the auto industry. So we're glad to help in the transformations that various industries need to go as the world is changing and as the economy is changing. Similarly, media is undergoing tremendous transformations from being very much around traditional media to now being much more digital. And Canada is very interested in making sure that we are supporting not just jobs in the industry, but the capacity of the industry to fulfill its extremely important role, which is to inform its citizens and empower them to be effective, knowledgeable actors within society. Media is an essential part of democracy. It's an essential part of having a strong, robust society in which citizens are empowered and feel like they are able to hold their leaders to account, make smart choices as consumers, and understand how the country they're in is evolving around them. And for us, we continue to be great believers in positive engagement with the media, as I'm glad to show today, as we continue to show regularly, because I know that media is facing, like so many different industries, significant transformations, but being able to ask direct questions of political leadership, get direct answers, and have an ability to connect with your readers and your viewers in a tangible way is extremely important. And it's important to me that we remember that the great power of community media is not in your ability to tell stories about the home country, whether it's China or elsewhere. The great power is in able to tell stories about this country in a way that connects with the lives and the experiences of your readership. So that's why when I meet with community media, I'm happy to talk about the auto industry. I'm happy to talk about trade deals in general. I'm happy to talk about our investments in the middle class, whether it's tax cuts for the middle class by raising taxes on the wealthiest 1%, or the great Canada Child benefit that actually puts more money in the pockets of hardworking families. These are things that affect everyone, and my party is one that is very, very proud that we always tend to engage with everyone as Canadians and not as micro groups. And I think that's something that I'm happy to continue to showcase, and it'll be an important way to move forward as we look to being a country and a media industry that's adjusting to pressures and new technologies that require us to adapt and shift our ways.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. I want to thank you so much for coming out to Markham and into the Greater Toronto area to spend some time with us here today and to share your insights into both your recent trip to China and Premier Lee's visit here to Canada. Thank you again. And I want to thank all of you for coming out and covering today's media availability. So thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Do we have time for pictures? Yes. I'm asking my team. Cameron, do we have time for pictures? Yes.
Are we having any plans to have a language?